We're going to get back started with our keynote panel. Again, my name is Manny Salazar. I'm the president and CEO of the Kingsville Chamber of Commerce. And before I get into our next segment, I want to have a shameless plug for the chamber. Talking about workforce issues and recruitment and retention and all those fun things. The Chamber of Commerce recently applied for and was awarded the Texas Industry Partnership Grant. That's really exciting for us because it will create a jet engine training program with Coastal Bend College and embedded on the campus of H.M. King High School right here in Kingsville to support NAS Kingsville, the depot out there that does all the maintenance work for the T-45 jets in the Navy, which is our jet trainer. So we were very excited about that, and come to find out, we were the first entity in the Coastal Bend to apply for and receive that grant, and on top of that, we were the first Chamber of Commerce in the state of Texas to win that grant. So we're very excited about that. We'll have some more news on that as the program gets really ramped up. We're starting that process right now, but thank you to Chairman Daniel and the Texas Workforce Commission for all they do to support jobs on the local level. It's my pleasure to introduce Chairman Bryan Daniel to you all today. Bryan Daniel serves as the chairman of the Texas Workforce Commission, where he works to promote and support growth of Texas's world-class employers and talented workforce. To champion that goal, he advances innovative workforce and economic development strategies in collaboration with TWC's education partners, local officials, industry leaders, and industry leaders to establish Texas's competitive edge as the best place to work in the world. Prior to joining the TWC, Bryan served 4.5 years on the office of Greg Abbott Senior Staff, where he led the Texas Office of Economic Development and Tourism. And his tenure as a Texas State Director for Rural Development for President George W. Bush, and as Chief Administrator for Trade and Business Development at the Texas Department of Agriculture, along with his private sector experience as a marketing executive and member of the board of directors, have provided him with valuable insight on economic development and workforce issues. Bryan is a graduate of Texas Tech University with both bachelor's and master's degrees. And in 2019, Texas Tech's College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources recognized Bryan as a distinguished alumnus. And on top of that, he's someone who just advocates for our businesses every day. He does a great job at the TWC. He's an advocate for all of us. We're excited to have you in Kingsville, sir. And so with that, I'll call up Chairman Daniel and our other panelists, and we will get going into our keynote lunch panel.
Well, what a pleasure. Is everybody excited? It's hard to be the first speaker after lunch because everybody had lunch and they're excited about their lunch and they're digesting their lunch and they're a little bit sleepy, so we're going to keep it pretty good. We got a great panel. Those guys are making their way up there. And while they are, let me just say this. For me as a kid, a couple things about Kingsville that I wanted to talk about while they're getting their seats. This was the first town north, and it was really far away from my home in San Benito. There was a gas station on the south side of town when you came into town that had a Coke machine that you put as a quarter, and you open the little door and you pull that out. And if my sister and I didn't make too much noise coming across from Raymondville to Kingsville, we could stop there and get a Coke out of that Coke machine for 25 cents. So I always look forward to coming to Kingsville when my sister didn't screw things up by talking too much. Which was a lot. And the second, I wish she was here. The second thing is, so my dad graduated with his master's degree here at Texas A&M University, and he did that over the course of like 3 summers, driving 5 days a week from San Benito up here to get it. And so he was a fan, and I can remember a lot of Saturday nights that we went to bed with on the AM radio playing Javelina football and listening to Javelina football. And so I guess I've just sort of secretly been a Javelina football fan all these years. Still am, still really good football. I did go to Texas Tech, Red Raiders first, but we'll let the Javelinas be second in my heart. You did not come here to listen to me talk about why I love Kingsville, although I do. We've got, I think, some interesting things going on kind of around the whole state. And they asked me when we were getting ready for this meeting, you know, what's something that you would like to talk about? The thing I'd like to talk about is what local businesses are doing that are really going to lift up their community. And so I'll be real honest with you. I did not have any hand at all in picking the panelists. I just like said, this is what I'd like to talk about. And they said, okay, we're gonna find a really good panel to talk about that. And was I ever thrilled when they told me who agreed to do this. So with us today, we've got Ysidro and Tito Villarreal, local business folks. They're doing some really cool stuff. A couple restaurants here, one in Alice. They've got a nice wedding venue here right outside of town. That is what small business is. Manny agreed last minute to sit in with us.
Crashed the party.
Because you know what? I asked him to crash the party because there's a lot going on in this community, and we need to talk about it because this is the backbone of why the Texas economy is performing the way it does. So I'm going to focus for a little bit on the Villarreals, their businesses, and a project that they're working on that I think is pretty important. The first question I would have for you is just simply this. Tell us a little bit about your family, a little bit about your family business, and how you got into the restaurant entertainment business, a big business here in Texas.
I guess I'll start. I'm Isidro Villarreal, originally born and raised in Mathis. My wife also, our two sons graduated from there. My dad was always in business. He had a small farm. And he and my mom opened a dance hall in Mathis. It's still operating. It's called the Cielito Lindo. Had a couple of grocery stores. We had 2 radio stations in Beeville. So I was always involved with business. When I was 11, my dad asked, do you want to sell fireworks? And of course, I said, sure. He opened me a little stand and he bought the fireworks. I sold them. I had made money. He put them in savings for me. Just operated. And we actually sold fireworks till we moved here. Till 2006, we stopped selling fireworks. We opened Van's Burgers in Mathis, and Tito was going to school here at the university. And he said, Dad, let's open another restaurant in Kingsville. I said, there's a lot of restaurants, huh? He said, no, not like Van's Burgers. We're homemade burgers, we sports and everything. So we moved here and opened our Big House Burgers right across from HEB that is now Domino's Pizza. And we were successful. People liked our business. They were very appreciative. And we opened the second location in Alice, and then we have Elena's Cocina. And then we also have the wedding venue 5 miles out of town. So that's kind of how we got started. And I'll let my son Tito continue on that.
I'm just starting, and you want to do another question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that was pretty much the story in a nutshell. So just instead of, I guess growing on the family side, we decided to keep growing the businesses. So we've always taken the stance of, hey, let's stay together as a family. And I'm talking about living quarters to where we're living together so that we can continue to invest in this community. The community's been very, very good to us, and it's in part because of this university, because of the Border Patrol Station and the King Ranch, and you got a lot of strong things going on here. So it's been very successful, and we look forward to the next project in the Texas Theater.
So there's clearly a family tradition of what the university guys would call entrepreneurship. Your dad was a farmer, had a small farm. That's 24/7 kind of business. Fireworks is a seasonal business, even in the valley, and it's. You clearly grew up with an understanding of the entertainment value of things and how people view entertainment, but it doesn't. Opening a restaurant, that's kind of a big deal. There's I think there's more blood, sweat, and tears than there is money in the beginning. Talk a little bit about why the restaurant business and how you made the move from fireworks into the restaurant business.
Well, the fireworks was just like when I was growing up. I was a kid and I kept doing it. Then my sons kept selling fireworks. My wife helped. We all worked, and it was during Christmas and 4th of July. We made enough money for them, for school, for clothes, whatever they wanted to use for. The other part, as far as a restaurant, we just wanted to do a burgers place, and we opened Van's Burgers, which my sister now runs. She stayed in Mathis. It's still one of our own buildings. And then we decided to move here, and we rented or leased the place for 2 years before we bought where it is now at the mall. It is hard work. It's a lot of hours, and we finally started working out of it where my wife and I aren't there every day. We have employees that have been with us almost 20 years since we opened. And we trust them, and they take care of the business. Then, of course, the wait staff are mainly college kids. They make a good amount of money part-time, and we try and work with their schedule where they work weekends, nights, mornings when they don't have a class, and that's what keeps us going.
Now, Tito, I heard Ysidro say that when he was a kid, that his father asked him if he wanted to sell fireworks, and he said yes. But I haven't heard any part of this story where you were asked what you wanted to do. How did you choose to stay in the family business? I assume you have other interests outside running restaurants and venues, but tell me how that decision gets made at some point after school's finished.
Well, I was blessed when I was younger. When my dad left out, my grandfather was actually an agricultural contractor, is what we like to call it. And he'd travel from the valley all the way up to Kansas picking onions, potatoes, pumpkins, all different crops and whatnot. And I have an older brother. I was the youngest of the two, and my grandfather worked less than my dad did, so he'd get to go home and take a nap. So I was always with my grandfather, and my brother was made to go with my father. So my brother did more of the labor, and I was hanging out with my grandfather. And I guess I asked him the question instead of him asking me the question. So hanging out with the rock of the family kind of got me more into being a little bit more aggressive with what I would like to do with life and what I would, where I want to be in life as well.
What you're really saying is you've had good decision-making skills your whole life, even as a kid.
Well, I always tell people this, and I'll make it as quick as possible. So we're all blessed with opportunities. Some aren't as good as others, but what I do know is that my grandfather showed me something, but there was still a person that showed him, and that person was his father-in-law. And I don't know who showed his father-in-law, how to get into business, but I'm sure someone did, So
Absolutely. So you're part of the business community here. I think in all towns the size of Kingsville, and there are a lot all across the state of Texas, I think the thing that I find, and Manny, chime in here, but I think that it's really critical that the small business owners in that community really take an interest in their community. It's more than just, okay, I'm gonna have a burger stand, I'm gonna sell the best hamburgers, people are gonna like our hamburgers, they're gonna come buy our hamburgers. There's I think an obligation to, you help the Little League out, or you help the Knights of Columbus out, or you help the Boy Scouts, whatever, the Girl Scouts, whatever it may be. And I get a real sense, your sense of family is very strong, but your sense of community seems to be just as strong. Tell us a little bit about what that means, Manny, for the business community. I'd love for the Villarreals to comment on how they see their role in the community, the Kingsville community also.
That's a really great topic and very timely, to be honest with you, because last year the Villarreals saw a need in Kingsville for a real 4th of July celebration. And so at their own expense, they created a 4th of July celebration in downtown Kingsville for our town. And it drew thousands of people. And they are having it again this weekend. And so it's a real way of endearing yourself to the community. And this is not the first time they've done something like this. They do sponsor Little League and feed the football team and go out and make sure that people have toys and bikes at Christmas. And they do all the things that can really make people want to support their business. And so it's a lot more than having a great burger or having a great environment at a restaurant. You want to support people who support the community. And the Villarreals have done a great job of that. And I think that's a model for a lot of other businesses. You see some folks who are interested in, what their bottom line is entirely, and they don't give as much back to the community. They don't do a good job of building those relationships, those networks, and they struggle. And so I think there's a lesson to be learned about, investing in your community is a good investment in your business. And the Villarreals have done a great job of that, and I think that the Texas Theater Project is an example of that. That's a sort of legacy project that's going to leave its mark on Kingsville for generations. And so, yeah, it may have started with the farming and fireworks stands, but the legacy here is going to be so much more. And like I said, it really goes back to being able to connect to your community, understand what the community needs and wants, and being able to provide that service to them. And so, yeah.
Well, you mentioned the Texas Theater Project. I'm really interested in this project. theater here in Kingsville. I don't remember the last time it showed a movie. It's been there a long time. I think a lot of people viewed it as just another building downtown. But when you looked at it, you saw an opportunity to have something for the community. Tell us about the project, but tell us your vision for the project and how you saw that building and realized that there was an opportunity for you in Kingsville there.
Well, like I said earlier, my parents, they bought about 4 or 5 acres in Mathis. They secured a loan and used money that they had, and they opened the Cielito Lindo, which is a dance hall used for graduations, public dances, anniversaries, all of that. So I was involved in the music industry by just being there with my parents when I was like 4 years old. It opened in January of 1958, and it's still working. We remodeled it twice in the last 10 years. And we have graduations, public dances also. So when we saw this here, we liked the theater. I think it opened in February of 1950, is what the floor plans show on it. And since it had gone, I attended one movie when I was in high school there. And then when we moved here, it was already closed, and it was some type of a church. And then it closed, and somebody tried to remodel it, and they weren't able to complete it. And we looked at it and we thought, well, this is something that we'd like to do, and hopefully bring some entertainment, some music, comedy, different things like that to have here in Kingsville. And we're looking at it as hopefully revitalize a little bit of downtown from there all the way to the King Ranch store, and get more little businesses that might be open and help with like the 4th of July concert that this is our 3rd year. It brings in people from out of town and local people, and it's a free concert. Just come in and sit down and enjoy the music. So it'll be there where we'll be able to use it, and also maybe benefits like for churches or Little League, things like that.
And you're in the first stages of this revitalization. You've been working on this about a year or two at this point?
About 18 months,
About
I'm
18
assuming.
months.
So the projects began to move a lot faster in the last 2 or 3 months. Engineering and, architecture, those kinds of plans kind of delayed the project. And obviously COVID and some of the pricing of the larger AC units and some of the materials obviously aren't helping the cause right now, but we are seeing some assistance. We're seeing some of those costs starting to go down a little bit. So we're really excited about what the completion of the project, but we think it's still another 12 to 14 months out. So,
and as I recall, you obviously have a plan for the main stage, which you've mentioned, comedy shows or music shows. You were looking at a patio off of one side of the theater.
Correct.
I think you had a plan for the balcony area inside the theater as sort of another club area, if you will. So it's going to happen in phases as you bring this together, but you'll have outdoor venue, you'll have a small intimate kind of venue, and then a larger stage kind of venue. So you're going to be able to
Correct.
do many different kinds of shows once you're up and running on this.
Correct. And that's the most important part of anything on the entertainment side. You want to be able to, it's hard to bring 4 A-list, whether it's artists or comedians in 1 month, so you got to be able to supplement some B-list and C-list artists and work some things during the week. And not only that, but obviously we're talking music and we're talking comedy, but I think one of the bigger reasons for the purchase and the bigger reasons for the deal is going back into the community side, is being able to provide stuff for kids, so a lot of the surrounding communities around Kingsville are a little bit far from Corpus, so Corpus is getting all of the Disney on Ice. I have an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, and we took her to see Baby Shark in Corpus. I don't think she was 12 months old, and about 6 months later she remembered Baby Shark, and but we don't have those opportunities for the smaller surrounding communities like the Ricardo, the Rivera, the Falfurriuses that may not be willing to drive all the way to Corpus. So there's a way for the community to get them there, and while they're here, they can stop and have a burger or stop and have some barbecue at Justin Bray's, and so that's the deal. I think that's your core question, right? What's it going to do for us?
Mm-hmm.
We grew up from Mathis, and I think, not to be rude, but I think everybody wants to get out of their community, right? So if you ask a kid from Kingsville, I'd say 60-70% of them say, well, they want to go to Austin, or they want to go to Lubbock, or they want to go to to College Station. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are living outside that say, I want to go to Kingsville. And if we give them that opportunity, give them that reason to actually come out and make that move, you know, and the Texas Theater is something that can make that happen.
Well, I think you're right about that. Before I forget, I do want to say any parent who can sit through all of Baby Shark should get some sort of Parent of the Year award. It's incredible programming. Yeah, I saw that he actually winced a little bit when he said Baby Shark, but I have two daughters. I felt every bit of that. But you know, your point about people wanting out of their hometown, particularly if it's a small hometown, is a very good point. What I find to be interesting, though, is you will leave so you can come back. There comes a point in your life when I've lived in Washington, D.C. I've lived in Austin for too long. I grew up in a rural area, and I'd like to get back to that. And I think all of us at some point realize our parents were really smart for raising us in the rural community that they did. I think projects like your Texas Theater project brings an opportunity to a town like Kingsville that you can have the things people want. We create jobs. Manny is going to put out a lot of press releases this year about all the jobs that have been created in Kingsville. But what we don't talk about is when we create opportunities for people to maybe move back here to retire or move back to their family place or be closer to their family because they want to do that. And I think venues like this one give us an opportunity. You mentioned something in your answer, though, I wanted to come back to. You were talking about, you used the words B-list, C-list, D-list artists. And, you know, having had the opportunity a couple times in my career to work in the entertainment space, it's a complicated business, and bookings are very complicated. I was thinking to myself while you were talking, I never saw it, but I'm 100% positive that Freddie Fender played the VFW Hall in San Benito before he ever played the Grand Ole Opry. And that's just how it works. George Strait would not have been George Strait, but for the small venue in San Marcos that let him play for Tip Jar. Do you envision what you're doing with the Texas Theater Project as a place for artists to come and grow? And will you provide those artists? Is it more than just a music venue? Is it really just kind of a laboratory to see how they can grow and get their business side of the business in place so that they can pursue the creative side that they love so much? Tell me a little bit about what your thinking is around that and how those bookings might benefit the larger community.
You're correct in that you have A, B, C-list artists, in some cases, some D-list artists, right? But the tough part is for any promoter or any venue is trying to get on those A-list artist tours. I mean, they take some doing, and it's more political on that side. I think Willie Nelson just played with was it George Strait over in Austin? Mm-hmm. Someone made that happen. That's not just a person like Tito calling and saying, hey, George Strait, I have this amount of money, and hey, Willie, I have this amount of money, we'll see you in Kingsville, you know? But what this community does offer to be able to make moves like this is just an amazing legacy in Kingsville, Texas. You know, you have the King Ranch. This is the home of the King Ranch. And, you know, you tell Willie Nelson, hey, we're opening up the legendary Texas Theater, and we want you to be the inaugurated, you know, artist with the grand reopening. Things like that can happen, you know. The smaller artists are still able to come in. We don't see the venue holding more than 1,400 people. How do you get those A-list artists? Well, you know, tiering and pricing is gonna have to happen. But yes, you'll have a lot of the C-listers come through, and especially on the upper side, the second level, the balcony level has about seating for 200, 250, you know. And that's a great spot to have nice acoustic sessions, exactly like what you just said with George Strait, having a tip jar, or some up and coming comedians, and even some A-list comedians. You know, you don't have a lot of comedians doing stadium tours anymore. The theater is what's happening all over the country right now. The club scene is really gone when it comes to going to a dance. People don't want to dance. People want to pay a little extra, sit in a chair, and get there when they want to get there because they know their chair's there and it's reserved. So the Texas Theater, you know, bringing it back out it's great timing. If you pay attention to any kind of advertisements that you're seeing on your social media and seeing on on events happening outside of this community, you're going to notice that 60 to 70% of them are theaters. They're theaters, and it's coming back, and it's a great deal. Someone was just telling me earlier, not someone, Mr. Roller was just saying there's some money that was put aside into the Texas Music Association for that, and that's big, because these old theaters, you know, there's a lot of savings there. Obviously, there's a lot of investment that needs to go in to bring them in, but at the price of cement, at the price of wood right now, you know, restorations are probably a better avenue than going in and building a brand new venue.
These are projects of the heart. In some cases, it actually probably makes more sense. Your engineer would tell you to scrape it all off and rebuild a brand new one, and you lose some soul when you do that. It is interesting. The music business has changed a lot over the years, and the last 20 years, because of streaming, it's changed in some ways that I don't think we thought about. So artists used to get their money from their album deal, and they would tour to promote the album on behalf of the label. Today, what we find is that artists tour to make their money now, because the streaming is going to be paid for through the various platforms. And so artists, I've talked to lots of them. I'm trying to think of like Pat Green, Robert Earl King, like names you would recognize who have been solid regional artists. They're going back out on the road to play, and they want to play venues like this one because it means something to them. I mean, think about this. One of the most famous dance halls in Central Texas is Green Hall outside of New Braunfels. They didn't have air conditioning. You just open the windows and you just sweat and drink more Lone Star and then sweat some more while you dance. But it is completely about the experience, and that experience only happens when someone takes the time to renovate a building the way you're doing it, something that's part of that. When I was a kid in downtown San Bernardino, we did things downtown. There would be cars everywhere on Sam Houston Street, and people would just park and they would come, and we don't see that in downtowns anymore. I think you're thinking we're going to bring people back to downtown, which means it's not just going to be the Texas Theater. Maybe the Saddle Shop. Maybe, is it Two Doves, Lonesome Dove? Two Doves over there. I've seen, there's that great little antique store there. There's a great art store. I think we're going to see a lot more than that come back to life when this venue gets up online.
Yes, sir, that's one of the things that we've noticed. My wife and I, we like to go into Fredericksburg once or twice a year. She was there this past weekend with a couple of her friends. And you see that, you know, people come in from out of town, go spend a night or two, and they eat, they drink, they spend money shopping. And that's kind of something that we're hoping will happen in downtown Kingsville. The theater on one end, the King Ranch on the other, and then all the small businesses in between. I myself try and go into the stores and buy little things, whatever I can, to support them. And that's what we're trying to do.
And the city's done a great job of already promoting downtown. They've been doing wine walks for 2 or 3 years that we've kind of helped them out with, and we're seeing those numbers go up, and they're seeing the vacancies there. I believe we've had a few businesses from Corpus come in and open up shop in downtown as well. So the groundwork they're laying is great. Now, these aren't great numbers, but people are starting to see it, and once they see the project move along a little bit faster and whatnot, it'll be something that'll create a lot of excitement, not just in Kingsville, but in South Texas, you know.
So 2 things on that. So part of the Texas Theater project makes it so great is the quality of place. Everyone wants to live in a place that they can be proud of and there's things to do. And so when you have a university and you have concerts coming through regularly, kids are more likely to see it on the news. They might hear from friends. They might come into town to visit. Then maybe a kid from Alice or San Benito goes to A&M Kingsville instead of A&M Corpus Christi. That helps our population, it helps our economy. And then on what Tito mentioned with the city helping out, we created an economic development grant aimed at helping businesses go that extra mile with the capital they need to renovate their building. And David Thibodeau sitting over there, he owns the Kate building. It's catty corner to the Texas Theater. Did a beautiful renovation of that space and created some new retail spaces in a building that has been closed for a while. Really wasn't all that high functioning. And so now the second floor is going to be renovated for a wine bar. And so you're going to see some more interest in people coming to downtown after hours, having some drinks, going to a concert, maybe some more food trucks pop up. And all of that leads to a better quality of life for the high school student who wants to take a girl on a date, or the college kid, or, you know, me, 42 years old, having a date night with my wife. It helps across the board. And so when you create a better quality of life for every resident, it just helps the economy time and time again. I'm really excited about both of these projects because they open up a lot of avenues for for new entertainment, and then for new retail space for folks who may not have the opportunity to come downtown.
Well, and the multiplier effect for $1, I mean, if we send $1 to Corpus Christi, it's going to turn over 7 times in that economy. If we spend that same $1 in Kingsville, it's going to turn over 7 times in this economy. And I think if we're really focused on family and we're really focused on community, and I think you sincerely are, this is gonna lift up a lot of other businesses downtown as well. They're gonna want to be a part of the success. I think what I've heard you say is it's a little bit lonely in the beginning, in the sense that you're trying to put this together. You have to have money to do these things, so you have to be able to navigate all of that. It's been very difficult on the supply chain to get all the parts that we need. 2x12s right now are still $40 at the lumber yard. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that has been and continues to go on in the economy. You don't just wake up one day and decide that you're going to do this. But I really think that communities, when they see this start to move, you said in the last couple of months it's moved faster than it did the 6 months before that. You know, I think people begin to understand what it can be, and I think that they want to help push it along the finish line as well. Tell me, you've touched on it, but talk a little bit about the community support. Talk a little bit about some of the other businesses that you have come in contact with, and how they're working with you to move this project towards completion.
Glad you said that, because on the community side, outside of the Texas Theater, the 4th of July concert that we've been putting on, it'll be the 3rd year this coming Sunday. They're put on by the likes of all small businesses. You know, we got Justin Bray over there that's donated all 3 years in a row. You know, we put money in for that as well. You know, the local dealership, the Neeson family, the banks in town, 2 or 3 banks donate every time. We have IBC, First Community, Clayburg Bank. The best part about Kingsville, Texas, is that you can come to the same 12 businesses, and they're always going to say yes, first off. And there's a few of them here today, and that's what really helps this community continue to grow. So I really wanted to point that out. It's hard when we have to call each other and ask, "Hey, can you help us out with this event?" you know, but it's something that's great for the community. It's something that really helps. In this case, it's Spanish music, but in this case, there's a lot of Hispanics in this town that don't have that opportunity to go to Corpus to see that fireworks show, that don't have the opportunity to go to Corpus just to eat. So when you're providing some good quality entertainment in this town for the Hispanic community, it means a lot to them. You know, it means a lot to them. If you go out there on Sunday, you'll see all walks of life out there. In fact, the first year we did it, only 49% of our attendees were from Kingsville, and we put on the show in 11 days. You know, how do we put on the show in 11 days? Because of numerous businesses in this town, not the Villarreal family, and that's very, very important to point out. But going back to the Texas Theater side of that, there's a lot of support on that side. There's a lot of businesses that are wanting to see it come to life, and well, especially the restaurateurs in town. We're one of them. Going back to Justin Bray again, it's the 3rd time I mentioned his name, but what are people going to do before a show? They're going to go get some barbecue. They're going to get a burger. They're going to get some seafood. They're going to get some Mexican food, you know. We end the shows early enough. What are they going to do after? They're going to go to Whataburger. They're going to go to McDonald's. They're going to, you know. So there's a lot of reasons for the whole community to be excited about this renovation, and they rightfully are. So we're excited not just for that business, but we're excited to see people come from out of town, put some money in the pumps, put some money in the hotel rooms as well, you know.
Pretty exciting project, really exciting opportunity for the community. Just thank you so much for making time to come talk with us about it. Can you guys maybe answer a few questions if there are some? Let's see if there's any questions out in the crowd. Brian's got a microphone, I think. Oh, somebody does. Any questions? Raise your hand.
We have not developed a website for the Texas Theater project, and to be honest with you, it wasn't on my mind, but that is a great idea, and we'll do that. And I say that with a website because Facebook page, obviously everybody goes straight to Facebook. That has been created, and we have some things that we're going to release. We just didn't want to release things until we saw the project moving forward. but we've had some really cool finds, one being a wallet from 1950 something. So we have some things that we're going to release later on, and once we kind of get closer to the opening of it, to kind of create some excitement and say, hey, anybody know who this person is? We have their wallet, and kinds of things like that. So we do have a plan. We just hadn't put it into effect of an actual website, more social media based.
Other questions?
Ken wants to ask a question, but he doesn't want to monopolize the conversation.
First of all, congratulations on the success of your businesses. And I guess the question I would have with the small businesses that are in this room, a business might be the best tamale maker in the world. But what advice would you give that person when they have to think about accounting and delivering to markets and growing their business, making profits? Because they may have this passion project, and it sounds like this is a passion project for you, but at the end of the day, you're trying to make money on this. And I loved what Manny said about quality of place and quality of life, because Chairman Daniel, it is a multiplier. But for the businesses that are just starting out, while they may be very, very good at what they do, how do you wrap around people that are close to you, or business planning, to make sure that you're covering all those bases? Because you might not know about the accounting piece. You might not know, if you're the chief executive officer, you might not be thinking about, you might have to clean the bathrooms at your own place and take out the ice chests and all these other pieces. So what advice would you give those small businesses?
Network. Very simple. You're 100% correct. You cannot do it alone. I'm a little bit more of the face of my family's business. My father just retired a couple of years ago from DPS. So the majority of people know me and my brother. My mom's always been in the kitchen, and people come say, how did you do it? How'd you? Well, that's your first problem. I didn't do it. I had my father doing the numbers at night. I had my mom in the kitchen. I'm up front. My brother's working other businesses and trying to create that community. And that it takes a team. It's very hard for one person. I physically cannot see one person doing it, because I've been blessed with a family. But networking and getting to see how you can work with the other businesses in your community, because it goes back to community, and something that no one has mentioned, I don't know if it's frowned upon, but church. Church is very important. Church supports community just as much as businesses support community. So it doesn't matter what religion you're in, church will support, So I believe in church and community, and if you're networking with both of those, you have a better chance of surviving. So
It's also getting resource providers like the SBDC and SBA and tapping into their expertise. I mean, they have folks who specialize in these kind of things, and if you don't know the right questions to ask, just go sit down and talk and say, hey, I have this business. There are things I don't know. Where can you help me? Where can you fill in those gaps? And so when for economic development grant, one of the things that is required is a business plan. So the first thing I do to someone who has an idea or a project is go to the SBDC, create a business plan. They can help you work through all of those issues, questions you haven't thought about asking, problems you don't know exist yet that are going to pop up. They can help you address all those things before you get there. And that creates the network of folks who are subject matter experts. And so if anyone's in that position, we have some great resource vendors out there who do a great job. Miss Lucy over there, she's our go-to. She used to work for the Kingsville Chamber. She knows what she's doing. We have a great number of folks out there who can help you. And so don't be shy about asking for help. Call the chamber. Let us connect you with the right folks. That's what we're there for. We're there to be an advocate and a resource and tap into that. That's why we exist.
All right. Well, join me in thanking them. What a great panel. What a great story they have to tell. Gentlemen, we really appreciate you making time to be with us this afternoon. This meeting goes on for a little while longer, and they're going to be talking about a lot of different issues. But just hearing from the people who are actually doing these things, finding success in their community, and wanting to be a part of that community, it helps inspire us all. Thank you for doing that. It's been a pleasure being with you this afternoon.
Thank you so very much.